Does the employee understand their role clearly? What is their vision for their actual work, their workspace, their communication style? How does them aligning with the company vision benefit them personally in more than a paycheck? What are the incentives? What is going to motivate them to be in alignment?
Welcome to MetaGagement, the HR show that dives deep into the heart of employee engagement and workplace culture. Your hosts, Ann Scottlin and Dr. Lyman Montgomery, bring you a groundbreaking show that explores innovative strategies and insights to transform and elevate your organization's HR practices. Dr. Montgomery is an employee engagement expert and best-selling author, while Ann Scottlin is an acclaimed business consultant and podcaster. Together, they will unpack the complexities of modern HR challenges and reveal innovative solutions that can be immediately applied to your workplace. Please welcome Ann Scottlin and Dr. Lyman Montgomery.
Welcome back to MetaGagement-HR, the podcast where we make the possible probable. And Lyman, review for our viewers and listeners today. What are we here for? What are we doing? Why are we doing this show?
We want to basically reintroduce the whole concept of what does it mean to be meta-gaged, where the marriage between the meta mindset and engagement comes together for what we call meta-gagement. And we want to do something special for our HR listeners. We support HR. We understand that post-pandemic, there are still a lot of issues and struggles. I spent close to 30 years in HR. And we just want to make sure that our HR, what I call my HR peeps, have an opportunity to listen in, get dialed in, but also leave with strategies to help them do their job and do it more effectively.
More effective strategies for sure. And clearly one of our main objectives is that we feel like makes us a little bit different from just everybody, not because we're better, but because we have an angle that seems to really resonate with people. We have, did I say angle? That's a terrible word, Lyman, for marketing. You never want to have an angle. Our point of view is a meta point of view, but really what it means is we're fostering resilience and adaptability. We're focusing on solutions and finding ways to do the same things that we've tried to do in the past that haven't worked more easily with more strategic, mental and practical strategies.
Absolutely, yes.
And we're diving deeper into how HR professionals can really work with their teams. We use, tell us about some of the, remind us about some of the processes and tools that we're bringing to our viewers and listeners.
Yeah, for example, we want to make sure that not only are you doing your job, but that you have the mental tools, strategies with the use of neuroscience, some little what we call hacks and tweaks and things that you can do to make your job a lot smoother, a lot easier, to relieve some of the stress. So we do a lot of breathing techniques, a lot of what you call it, meditation technique, but also not just at work, but we have two segments, on the clock, but also off the clock, and provide tools and resources for our HR peeps so that they can live a rich meta life.
Absolutely. And so with that all said, thank you for letting us do an overview, especially if you're new. We're going to do something fun. This is the beginning of a 3-part series that you're going to love, and it's the top 3 strategies to prevent employee burnout. What are the top 3 strategies to prevent employee burnout? And the one we're going to do today is just to be a pain in the butt. We're going to start with number 3 and make you wait for 2 and 1.
Yeah.
So the third, probably the third most important, but incredibly important strategy is cultivating a clear vision. So in today's episode, we are going to talk about how to cultivate a clear vision, how to prevent directional uncertainty in our teams and companies. And the first thing we want to talk about really, Lyman, is point 1 is the vision has to be communicated.
Yes. I think that's one of the biggest issues with any type of change management, any type of new rollout, is people don't understand, number one, what is the vision? Why are we doing the vision? Whose input was included in the vision? Is it top down? Is it inclusive? Is it a collaborative vision? And is the vision sustainable? And so we want to get into that and really unpack what does it mean to communicate the vision? And part of communicating vision is all about being intentional. One
Yes.
of the issues that we run into time and time again is where top management, the C suite, get together and say, our vision is XYZ. And they send it down to marketing. Marketing might do a little small test, a pilot group, a focus group, and they say, "Oh yeah, they love this word. We got to make sure we have these keywords in there, right?" They say, "Great, okay, get it out," and they send it out. They post it on the wall, and if you walk around any company, you say, "What's the vision of the company?" You kind of get the deer in the head, like, do we have a vision? Well, or they say, well, my personal vision, or I think the vision is, and that's because it has not been clearly communicated.
Absolutely, and it's like it reminds me of when I was a kid. I grew up in the middle of freaking nowhere, and I always say that I mean that. Not just the freaking nowhere of the town, but outside of the smallest town in freaking nowhere. So just to be really, really clear about that. And one of the things my parents wanted us to do at that time was to create self-sustaining food sources, and we
Mm,
had wells and springs on property. We were starting to grow our own food. So what we were going to do is plant a garden. So my father says to my mom, let's start a garden. He meant you start a garden, but we won't talk about that today. You start a garden, because he still had a day job. And he has this vision of what a garden is going to look like. But if he's picturing corn and tomatoes, and my mom goes to the feed supply store and gets peas and turnips and green beans, he's going to be really disappointed when he comes back and realizes that the garden has nothing that was in his vision, because there was no communication, because the vision has to be
mhm.
communicated. He doesn't say, this is my version of a garden, this is your version of a garden. So the company vision is important. And I think for most big companies, this has been hammered out in recent years. They're doing much better. But the team vision, we
There
always
you
talk,
go.
Lyman, about whether
Yes,
we're in alignment or agreement. The team vision requires alignment. And I think that's the first step where this often falls apart.
I agree 100%. Is now keep in mind the team vision is not separate and apart from the corporate vision. It's how does the corporate vision fit into alignment with the team's vision? And then if we go a little bit more granular, what is the individual's role in the vision? So if you look at it from a what I call a watershed or a waterfall, is there's the large corporate vision. Let's say, for example, our vision is to be the premier HR strategy company in Northwest United States. Okay. So an example of a team vision would be our team is positioned to be the premier, let's say, marketing team with our company within the Northwest United States. All right. Then it goes a little further and says, my role as a contributor is to be the best or the premier expert in the sales department in the Northwest Territory. So again, it reaffirms and supports as an individual, the team, but also the corporate. And a lot of times that's what's missing is that there's this broad overreach of a corporate vision, but people don't see themselves or agree with the vision. Like, well, I don't care if we're the premier or number one. Matter of fact, and we were talking about this earlier, Ann, imagine if I worked at a car dealership and I sold a high-end sports vehicle. All right, pick one. I'm not going to say a name. Pick one.
I know you like several.
Oh yes, oh yes. And let's say you come in and you're interested, you and John interested in purchasing a new sports vehicle, right? And I'm going to just say Maserati. I like Maseratis.
Nice choice.
And you're asking me about a Maserati color and everything, the particular model. And you notice that when you got there, you see several of my sales associates driving BMWs or Hondas. And then you ask me, say, well, Lyman, how do you enjoy your Maserati? And I say, oh, I don't have a Maserati. I drive a Cadillac. What's wrong with that picture?
Leadership, which is something we're going to come back to in just a couple
Yes.
minutes for starters, because leadership at all levels around vision. Because our first point today is that vision has to be communicated. And what we're going to come back to in a few minutes is that it has to be demonstrated. So absolutely. So having a clear vision from the top to a bottom and creating alignment. And I love how you were, demonstrating the construction of a vision where you start with a company vision. It's like creating a narrative, right? It's a story basically of commas or periods, but it's a continued story until you get all the way through in whatever order you prefer. But, company vision, team vision, the project vision. And well, I guess I would say, company vision, team vision, and project vision, and the individual alignment. And I was like, how does individual vision come into this? And I'm a great fighter for the rights of the individual and individualists. So wait a minute. So if I have my own vision, what if it is completely not aligned with the company vision? What does that mean? But also on the other extreme, a lot of times you just see a point blank comment like individual vision must align with the company. Well, how completely dry and boring and inhuman is that? Individual vision must align with the company. How about we start with the individual and we work for a meeting? We go meta, and we go meta by keeping everyone active on the same level. Does the employee understand their role clearly? What is their vision for their actual work, their workspace, their communication style? How does them aligning with the company vision benefit them personally in more than a paycheck? What are the incentives? What is going to motivate them to be in alignment naturally? We say so often how adults are really just big kids, incentive versus force in training, right? So how do we bring those into alignment? And so we'll just take another minute here to wrap up our point one. The vision has to be communicated.
And all of those are those points of communication points. Whether it's a project, talking about the vision of the project and how that ties into the team's vision, your role as a member of that team, giving input. And remember, the vision is futuristic. That's why I said we want to position ourselves as the premier. That's future state. You may not be there right now. You might be in last place. Okay. You might be in number 55 out of 55. Okay. Or 56 out of 60. But that's okay. You can still have a vision for where you want to go. So think of vision as the end spot, right? It's the destination. It's not the journey. Communication is like the GPS. You know when you get in your car and the GPS says, turn left on such and such street. It gives you milestones, different things to point out along the way. In my particular vehicle, it's interesting. If I drive, let's say, more than 4 to 5 hours, a little icon pops up with like a cup of coffee or hot tea, and it says, you might want to pull over and take a break. You've been driving for 4.5 hours.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, so getting in alignment with the vision and even the vision of the car company is a safety record, which also involves the drivers. So are the drivers and the company even in alignment? And there's always this bonus point in when I talk about these points, which is always ask whether it's company, team, project, or individual vision. Is it aspirational? Are you setting the standard high enough to be motivating and exciting and fun? But is it also attainable? If I go to my personal trainer and they're like, okay, I want you to achieve your goals. You need to work out 3 hours a day, 7 days a week for the next 6 months. That is not attainable. It's impossible. I'm going to get sick. Something's going to happen. I'm going to have to travel. So what, it's just not fit my lifestyle, right? But what if he says, I want you to work out for 90 minutes, 3 days a week, and you can average this number of workouts over the course of a month. That's attainable. So let's set standards and goals that are not so high that we become disingenuously bored, honestly. Like, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah. And not only is it aspirational, not only is it attainable, but my favorite word is it sustainable. The
Ah,
longevity of it. Okay. Because if it's attainable, you can see it, you can
mhm,
feel it, you can taste it. All right. You see yourself actually doing it. But the bigger question is frequency and duration.
mhm,
What's the level that I can do it? Because if you were to say, "Hey, Lyman, can you walk?" I'm like, "Sure, I can walk." Okay, I want you to walk a 5K. Ooh, let me think about that. Better yet, why don't you walk this marathon, which I think is what, 22 miles, something like that, 21.2 or something like that miles. That's a whole nother. So the first question is, yes, I can walk, but I'm not sure if I've prepared myself to be able to walk a 5K. But let's say I can do a 5K, right? Maybe that will position me to do a marathon if I do a series of 5K, but I have to start somewhere. And what we're talking about today with vision is it's okay if you start where you're at. A lot of people say, well, we already have a vision and we kind of started behind the eight ball. That's okay. Even if the vision that you have has changed, that's okay. You can always regroup. The problem I see, people get tied to, married to a vision that was created 50, 100 years ago.
mhm.
Different world.
Even 5 years ago, Lyman.
Even 5 years ago, yes.
I'm just saying, things are changing. I mean, things are changing at such a speed as we have never seen ever, between AI and everything else. Like, this is a whole new world. The post-COVID/AI world is a whole new planet. So, but what's exciting about that is we get to be creative again.
Yes.
We get to tell our team and our leadership, these are exciting new times. We get to experiment. We get to have fun. We get to look at things from a fresh perspective. And in your 5K example, your marathon example, what you and I do for our HR clients and teams is we're basically part of your, is your goal attainable? Is your vision attainable? Is having the right tools. So we're basically the high-end running shoe
Yes.
of the 5K. We're like, okay, if we can get you through a 5K with tools that are easily applicable and neuroscience that really works, and you don't have blisters and misery on your feet after 2 or 3 5Ks, I think you could walk a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have to wrap because we're having so much fun on this point. And
Oh,
we still
yes.
want to continue to talk a little bit more about how vision has to be demonstrated. So, yes, first, the vision has to be communicated, but of course, vision has to be demonstrated. So hang on. We'll be right back. You are watching MetaGagement-HR. Please like and subscribe. That helps us keep this content coming to you. And on whatever platform you're watching today, you can also contact us directly with your comments, with questions, with suggestions for the show. You can watch the ticker tape on the episode today and shoot one of those messages off to us. We will be right back in just a moment.
Unleash the power of focused meta mindset lunch and learn sessions. Sharpen problem-solving skills, spark innovation, foster collaboration, and build adaptability and resilience. Elevate your team's success and profits. Discover more at www.focusedmetamindset.com.
Welcome back to MetaGagement-HR, your destination for finding out how to create new solutions and strategies for the people on your team and in your company. How can you go meta and foster more resilience and adaptability as you go? And as you know, this is part of our 3-part series, Cultivating a Clear Vision. Actually, that's what our point is today. It's 3 strategies to prevent employee burnout. Burnout is a huge topic, but sometimes there are things that are overlooked. So we're talking today about cultivating clear vision and prevention, how we can do that. Our first point was vision has to be communicated. And now we're going to jump in and continue with vision has to be demonstrated. But before we do that, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Send us a message, send your ideas and questions. We love getting involved with you. So please reach out. Let us connect with you. We love it. So Lyman, we are talking about some key areas right now on how to demonstrate vision. And I am, as I would always say, it starts with leadership.
It starts with leadership. The one of the exciting, we saw this when we were together in Indianapolis. Shout out to all those that came out to support us at the HR conference there in Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago. Had a great time, huge success, a lot of fun. And going back to leadership, what we found out in our session dealing with DEI and diversity, equity, and inclusion is that we asked the question, we asked the poll question, if you recall, when are you trained on or execute your DEI plans? Overwhelmingly, 70% when there's a crisis. That is a true indication of there's a miss between leadership and those that support leadership. Because if you're only implementing during a crisis, then what are you doing when there isn't a crisis?
I mean, 70% during a crisis.
70%.
And how are people in a crisis? People are already stressed. They're worried about losing their jobs. They're reactive. They're under incredible performance pressure. There's, any number of HR issues at stake. So this is like, if you want to force more rules and rules of conduct on people in this environment, no wonder people are so reactive and push so hard, as opposed to let's implement while we're out smooth sailing, not in the middle of a storm when we're about to capsize.
Yeah. The other part of that that's interesting, going back to leadership, is we asked another question. How many of them were involved in the creation of the DI programs? Again, about 55, 60%, nope, top down. They were given to us. And we asked in the room, it was almost close to 80%. They said, nope, I was hired in, I was given this plan, and they said, implement it. And very little training on how to implement it. And so again, when we talk about demonstration and communication, it has to be where there's a collaborative intent behind it of saying, what makes this plan work? Whatever the plan is, what makes this vision work? But then you have to walk it out. When we talk about walk it out, we're saying, have you fire tested it under stress before there's a crisis? How do you do that? Scenario-based training. Here's a key point. Before you launch anything, create scenarios that you self-impose a little stress, and you start thinking about, well, what happens if this would happen? Well, what happens? So it's that's when you want to play the what if game.
Well, it's like a fashion show, the runway, right? Fashion show. Do you think that they never rehearse the fashion show? Do you think with the way those fashions look, there could be wardrobe malfunctions? Do you think that the height of the shoes they're wearing could actually break their ankles? Do you think someone might fall off the stage? I mean, you have to go through it. You have to find where the weaknesses are so you can be intentional about prevention.
When you was in Hollywood, did they just give you a script and say, okay, we're shooting in 5 minutes?
No.
No. You actually rehearsed the scene. You probably had days, if not weeks or months, where they kind of broke the entire movie down. So, okay, today we're going to shoot this scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be the middle, it might be the end.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes we say, well, we're going to start from the beginning. No, when you fire test something, going back to demonstrating it, you want to say, okay, what if we start in the middle? How would you happen if you just walked into a situation and you talk these things out? And what we like to say is there are 3 types of scenarios. the best case, the worst case, and if it stays the course.
Say that again for us.
The worst case. What's the worst case scenario that can happen with rolling out this vision or rolling out this plan,
Mm-hmm.
rolling out this project? What's the best case? If everybody's in alignment, there are no issues. What's the best case? And then there's always that middle ground. What if we just keep the current course?
Mm-hmm.
What would happen?
Mm-hmm.
If you
Mm-hmm.
take that mindset, worst case, best case, and if we stay the course, in other words, we play it safe, don't rock the boat too much, what happens?
Well,
Generally, those that stay safe, they lose. Those that think there's always the best case scenario, they're 50% right. Those that think that there's always a worst case scenario, guess what? They're about 40% right. So you have to crisscross.
and one of my strategies in demonstrating that is in more playful ways, and it's a testing, right?
Yes.
Reverse engineering. So have the team, okay, here's the worst case scenario. I want the whole goal of this activity today is to work backwards, like what led to what led to what led to what, back. It's like going to therapy for your scenario. You're going to
I love it.
The worst case, and now you're going to work back and say, well, how could I think different? Well, I'm just upset. I just feel terrible. What's the worst scenario? And when you work all the way back to the beginning, eventually it's like, well, death, to be honest. So,
and if you die, what's the worst case? What
right.
your belief
So, but you
system
found where all the holes are. Say if you take a larger team, and you split them up into 5 groups and have them all create a reverse case scenario, reverse engineer a worst case scenario, you're going to have
perfect.
5 different ways that it could go wrong. And what's exciting is then the next week, you can do the same thing for the best case scenario. And also, you've got people on board now. It doesn't have to be time consuming, but it gets people excited when they feel important in the process.
And imagine if you have those that are resistors. Oh, they are going to light up. I'm going to tell you 20 reasons why I don't. Thank you. That's what we want. Matter of fact, you might be the captain of the 20 reasons why it won't work club. But 1 week. And I've done this. I have a friend down in Texas. And before I roll out anything, I will send it to Janet. Now, Janet is not the person you call for motivation, inspiration. She is a scientist. She's an engineer by trade. Janet will tell you every single thing that's wrong, stuff you didn't even think of. But what I love about Janet, she will also come back and tell you 100 things you can do to improve it. So it's not just picking out what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say this a lot of times, and I would say, tell me everything that's wrong, but then double and tell me how to fix it. So for every 1 criticism, give me at least 2 suggestions on how to fix it.
Absolutely. Yeah, fair enough. A fair trade on an individual level, on a team level, relating to management and leadership as well, right? All the way down from the top.
And that's going back to demonstrate. Earlier before our break, I was talking about the car dealership, right? And that's the last point I want to make is you have to not only demonstrate in word, but you have to demonstrate in your character. If you say you're going to be the premier, am I a premier person? Do I show up as top notch? Or am I sort of laissez-faire? Well, I'm kind of half in, half out, kind of like playing a hokey pokey on the job. Remember that old song, put your left foot in, take your left foot out,
Yes.
Shake it all around, do the hokey pokey. That's what it's all about. Is that your mentality? Or do you show up? Now, you're going to make mistakes. We all do. We're human. But for the most part, are we showing up, living out the vision that we not only confess, but also profess?
I love it. Oh, well, I hope that those of you watching and listening today, I hope you got something out of that. We would love to hear what you got out of it. We would love to hear what your questions are. We love questions. So thanks again for joining us today. I'm talking about cultivating a clear vision. how to prevent directional uncertainty. And we talked about how your vision has to be communicated and the vision has to be demonstrated. And as we said, just to be fun and a pain in the butt, excuse me, we are doing this 3-part series, the top 3 strategies to prevent employee burnout. And we started with strategy number 3 today. And next time on our next episode, strategy number 2, from burnout to thriving, strategies for supporting overworked employees. How can we support overworked employees? I mean, from burnout to thriving. This just goes back to what going meta means. And we're going to talk a little more intensely about meta next time, but to the whole principle of making the possible probable. So I'm excited about that, Lyman. I can't wait to do that one right now.
Yes.
So next time, that's what we're going to be bringing to you. As always, you can always watch or listen to this show streaming at this time on Fridays, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard, 8 a.m. Pacific time. The links always work. You should be able to find us on a multitude of platforms. Send us your questions and comments. And once again, we humbly ask, do us a favor, please like and subscribe. We love you all, and we cannot wait to hear from you. We'll see you next time.
Go Meta.